So, welcome, my friends. We advertise this as APA behind the scenes. The impetus for this session was we get a lot of APA questions in the library, and we don't mind answering them. We actually like it. We think it's a good way for students to get introduced to research and some of the issues surrounding research that you don't really think about. Citation is definitely one of those. So we get so many of these questions that we thought it would be a good idea to kind of show you how librarians answer these questions. So that's what I'm going to do. Our objectives today, we're not going to start with that. We're actually going to start with kind of the general format of APA questions. And in my opinion, that's one of the most important things to understand is laying the groundwork for what a citation is so that you could look at a source and be able to pull away the actual aspects you need to create your citation. So I want you to leave feeling confident you can do that today. We're also going to talk about the APA online manual that the library has recently purchased for everyone at the school. We're going to talk about how to use it, some of the aspects of it, some good chapters, some of the reference examples that are good. We're also going to talk about our info guide, where we have collected some APA resources that we know our students find useful. I just want to highlight them again for you. Then I'm going to get into tricky APA questions. I asked the other librarians, Billy Ann and Carla, to come up with some ideas. We've all been here a long time. We've seen some wild APA questions, and we wanted to hone in on the ones that we get asked the most, where the student is just, they seem they feel like they're completely lost when they look at the citation. They've got no idea how to actually cite it, what the source is. So I've collected some of those questions, and I'm going to answer those live and show you how I would do that on my screen. And then I'm going to take your APA questions. So I hope you came with a couple. It's no problem if you didn't. Maybe you will think of some along the way. But this is APA Behind the Scenes, and I am Zach Young, your Assistant Director of Library Services here at Frontier. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, my friends, we get a lot of APA questions, and we're fine with that. We realize that part of being a librarian is helping folks understand all of the stuff that goes around research that's not actually research. So what types of APA questions are we getting? We get questions about paper formatting. So Zach, in a Word document, how do I adjust my margins so that I am meeting the criteria of an APA formatted paper? Zach, what is a level 1 heading? How do I use a level 2 heading? What's the appropriate way to put a conclusion in? What does my reference page need to look like? So all of these are paper formatting questions. And when I show you our info guide later on in the presentation, I'm going to show you something that takes care of that for you. We've actually got a template of an APA paper that you can download and start your assignments with. So we get asked about paper formatting. Then we get asked, Zach, other librarians, when do I actually cite something? Do I cite it in the middle of a sentence, at the end of a sentence, in the middle of a paragraph, at the end of a paragraph? Do I even need to cite it in text at all? We're going to talk about a citation format or a citation example at the end that you don't even put in your reference list. It only goes in your narrative, okay? It doesn't actually go on the reference list. So there's a lot of questions about when to actually cite something. Next, we get asked what to cite. Zach, what am I actually looking at? I've got a random PDF that someone sent me that I've saved on my computer for 3 years. I just opened it up, and it turns out it's exactly what I need for my assignment, but I've got no idea where I found this. I have no idea what it is. This is a big issue. So a lot of times students will email us a PDF, and they won't know exactly what the source is. They'll think it's a report, but the PDF is actually a journal article. They'll think it's a journal article, but it's actually a report, and vice versa. I mean, it just really depends on what you're looking at. So I'm going to cue you in on some things to look at when you see a PDF to understand what the source actually is. And then lastly, we get asked how to cite. That includes, what citation format should I use? Do I need to italicize the title? Do I not italicize the title? Is what I'm citing part of a larger work? Am I quoting something? All of these different aspects are questions that your librarians receive when you all are doing your assignments. So just about actually how many questions do we get? So around 10% of every question we answer in the library is APA related. and we're getting upwards over 1,000 questions a year. So we're looking at over 100 questions a year that are just about APA. And I would actually say that does not encapsulate all of our questions that we get. We often forget to document some of the questions that we get. So I'd say that's a lower end of the number. So yeah, part of our day, almost every day, is answering some form of an APA question. All right. The general format of an APA citation. This is the most important thing I will talk about today. If you can figure this out, if you can wrap your head around this, you will be able to cite anything under the sun very accurately. All right. So when we talk about a citation, what is it supposed to accomplish? A citation is supposed to attribute the source that you're citing. So you want to give credit to the source that you're citing, and then you want to be able to bring your reader back to the source you were looking at. So there's two main parts. We're attributing, we're giving credit to someone, and then we're also providing an avenue that a reader could get back to what we're citing. So an APA citation includes 4 parts: who, when, what, which is normally italicized, and where. We're going to cover all of those. Okay, so we've got who, when, what, and where. Just remember that. What's the who? Here's our who. Who's an author? Who wrote it? Right? That is the first identifying function of an APA citation. It can be a person. It can be persons. Okay? It can be a group. It can be persons and a group. So for instance, you could have maybe an organization like the Centers for Disease Control, and they can work with some original authors and they could write a paper. So your who could be Centers for Disease Control along with some actual people. So it can be made up of multiple. So it could be a group or a person. It could just be a group. And then if no author exists at all, you don't even use a who. You start with the title of a citation. Now, I say that, but it's rarely used. Almost every document you look at online will have some sort of author attached to it. Students get very confused with this, though. Let's say, for example, you're going to an organization's website. You're going to the American College of Nurse Midwife website, or whatever organization you belong to. And your instructor has asked you to find their mission statement and to cite their mission statement in your paper. All right, so you go to the website, you look at the mission statement, and you do not see a person's name. There's nobody identifiable who actually wrote the article. You may say to yourself, there's no author here, but that is not the case, okay? If you don't find a person's name, if you see an organization's name, a company name, or some sort of proper name, that is normally going to be your author. Okay. In the rare case, though, if you're looking at like a law or an anonymous article or something written by someone anonymous, you will then not have an actual author. Okay. When we look at laws or that are published online or bills, oftentimes you will not find an identifiable author. In that case, if no author exists, you start the citation with a what. All right. But that's very rare. You're normally going to have a group or a person. Then, after our who, we use a when. So again, who, when, what, where. The when is your date, but don't use the copyright date. Why do we say that? We say that because a copyright date is normally assigned to the template of the web page, meaning it is not representative of when the actual information on the page was published. So copyright date is a term used in a legal sense to protect the information on the page. It does not represent the actual time the information was published. So if you see only a copyright date on the page, do not use that. All right. Instead, use no date. All right. So if you can't find a date, you're using n dot d dot or n period d period. All right. If it is material that is time sensitive. And what do I mean by that? If it is a newspaper article, if it's a blog post, if it is something where the information in your document could eventually change so that if somebody looked at it 5 years ago, it would be different than what it is now. You will want to add a month and year to your date rather than just a year. The reason being is it is important to the reader to know when you looked and accessed this material, because if it was 5 years ago, it could have changed in the past 5 years. All right, so you need to know when it was actually published. This is also very relevant, and I hate to say this, for malpractice and for I had another one for medical history. Sorry, two big topics. Okay, for malpractice, they need to see what the standard was when the actual malpractice took place, not what it was 5 years later when the guidelines changed. All right, and for medical history, it's just important for history buffs to know when something date, as much information about the date as they can when they're talking about medical history. Okay, so that's our when. So we've got our who, and we've got our when. Now we go to our what. Our what is the title. And this is tricky for some students. Sometimes the title, there may be 3 titles on the page. So which title should you use? Well, as the expert, as the student here, all right, you're going to use the most identifiable logical title on the page. So whatever is the largest bolded text on the page that has to do with what you are citing, that is your title, okay? The title is normally italicized, all right? So the title is going to be italicized. And you're going to put it in sentence casing. All right, I'll show you how to do this in a few. We're going to do one of these. The title is not italicized if the work is part of a larger whole. That includes journal articles and book chapters. All right, the title is also not italicized as if you're citing an encyclopedia or a dictionary. Now, in my 15 years here, I don't think I've ever seen a student cite an encyclopedia or a dictionary, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. But you will be citing journal articles and book chapters, so if you know that what you're citing is part of a larger whole, then you need to realize that probably the title is not going to be italicized. What do we italicize in those types of documents? You italicize the larger whole, basically. So you don't italicize the journal article name, you would italicize the journal name, okay? You don't italicize the book chapter name, you italicize the title of the entire book, all right? So after our when, we have the last part of our citation, which is after the what, we have the last part of the citation, which is the where. Where did it come from? Where did you find it? We need to know. The reader wants to read your article. They want to read the awesome stuff you put in there, and they see a link that they like. They see something you've cited, and they're like, dude, I need to use this for my paper. How do I get back to this? And if you've cited it appropriately, the reader will be able to go to your reference section, find a link to click on, and then go directly to what you've cited. So this is your where. Normally, it's going to be in the form of a URL, okay? You can normally just paste the URL from your address box directly into the citation, all right? However, if you see a DOI, so everything you look at, you need to be looking to see if everything you want to cite, you need to see if it contains a DOI, which stands for Direct Object Identifier. If that is present, you use that in place of the URL in the search box. Okay, what is a DOI though? Well, think about it like this. A DOI is a permanent web address that a journal can purchase for their articles. Why would that be useful? I can tell you why that would be useful. Well, one, how many broken links have you seen in Canvas? All right. When a link breaks, it's because the web address has changed. The organization has changed the name, or they've restructured their website, or they've simply let the web hosting bill go go too long, and their web hosting has been taken down, right? So a lot of times you can lose access to those traditional URL links. With a DOI, a journal will pay money to ensure that their article is always accessible online via that unique identifying number, the direct object identifier, the DOI, okay? So it's basically a way to provide a permanent address, a web address to the article. Here's the thing though, like I said, it costs money. So guess what? A lot of nursing articles written in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, they don't have a DOI. So you got to look. All right. You want to look at the first page of the article, and if a DOI is present, you'll normally find it under the title or in the bottom left of the article on the PDF. Okay. Now let's think about this. How many of you, by a thumbs up or raise your hand, have tried to paste a link into your Word document and it's ended up being like 6 lines long? And you're like, this is the ugliest link I have seen in my entire life. If I turn this in, my instructor is going to think I'm a crazy person. Tony, I see you raising your hand. Hand up, thumbs up. Look, it happens to the best of us, okay? Well, with the advent of APA 7th edition, we are now allowed to use link shorteners. If you don't know about this, this is a game changer, okay? What you can do is you can take your massive 6-line URL. I'm looking at you, Ovid. You do these all the time, okay? You can take that massive 6-line URL and go to a website like tinyurl or just Google link shortener, and you will be able to paste your link into their box, okay, and hit generate, and it will spit out a much smaller, better looking link that you can paste inside of your document. This is an absolute game changer for the structure and the looks of your reference page. I think it's a fantastic addition that APA is allowing this. You don't have to use tinyurl. It's just the one that people have been using for years. I would recommend that one, but you can also find your own via a link shortener. Just Google link shortener. All right. So that is our who, when, what, and where. So once again, the who, your author. If somebody could mute, please, that'd be fantastic. I hear somebody in the background there. So your who is the author, your when is going to be your date, your what is normally your title, and your where is going to be some sort of URL. With that format, you can cite everything under the sun. I'm not joking. All right. I'm trying to make APA sound simple here. All right. Let's keep going. Okay, so let's look at some of these who, when, what, wheres. We'll actually look at them by taking a tour of some of the aspects of the APA manual. Now, if some of you have been here for a couple of years, maybe you're in your last year and you've shown up to this and you're like, Zach, I had to buy the APA manual. My friend, I am so sorry. We have actually went and purchased an institutional copy for everybody. Now, it was only available early this year, so we were not holding out on you. They just did not make it available to us, so I apologize about the $35. All right, for the rest of you, congratulations on your free $35 textbook, okay? Not only is it the free book, but you also get an online version of it, which is absolutely amazing. You don't have to hunt through it to find what you want. You can use a search box. Boy, it's the best. Let's take a look at it. So how do we actually get to it? Well, let's start at the portal page, and let's click on Library Home. Once we're at Library Home, scroll down slightly, right past the advertising for this session. Hey, scroll down and click on under Quick Links, APA Style Manual. Once you're there, this is the full APA manual on your computer. I'm not lying. All right. So what does this include? What's useful in here? Well, one thing that I think gets overlooked in the APA manual is the actual writing help it provides. I tell everybody at Frontier Bound, and I'm sorry if you're hearing this again, I come from a liberal arts background. That type of writing is almost the antithesis of nursing writing. Liberal arts writing, you can use like fun prose. You could say things like, I like this, I believe this, right? If you try that in nursing writing, you're going to have a bad time, okay? So this book specifically, all right, let's click on Table of Contents and let's scroll down to Chapter 4. There is a whole chapter. It's only 20 pages long, and it's on writing style and grammar. This chapter will turn you into a boring but successful writer here at Frontier, okay? So if you, like me, struggled with writing, okay, take a look at this chapter and get the groundwork laid so that you can start turning in successful content, all right? Another thing I want to highlight in this table of contents, let's scroll down a little bit more. In Chapter 6, we have a whole section on abbreviations. Oh my goodness. We get asked all the time, Zach, is it okay to abbreviate this organization's name? And I'm like, well, did you introduce the abbreviation? Is it a common abbreviation that everyone knows, right? All of this stuff is covered in the abbreviation section of the book here. Please pop in here if you're going to use abbreviations. Take a look and make sure you're using them correctly. I don't want you losing any points for using abbreviations incorrectly. All right. So there's lots of other stuff, fun stuff in the table of contents, and I do recommend you poke around and take a look at it. For instance, we've got a whole section on reference examples, but in my opinion, there's a better way to use this section of the book. Okay, I don't like having to scroll through and then like click on periodicals. What does that even mean for a lot of our students? That actually means journal articles. Like, why doesn't it just say that? You all don't know periodic. I mean, you're not supposed to know that. So instead, what I like to do is use the search box in the top right. So let's take a look at a journal article citation, and we'll talk about the who, when, what, where of that. Okay, so all I have to do is type in journal article in the top right. I hit search, and then I get my results. Now, because I'm a librarian, I almost always use a filter before I actually look at my results. So we're going to do that now, and we're going to filter this to only reference examples. All right, so Zach, you're telling me there are 26 ways to cite a journal? No, but there's quite a few. Not 26, but quite a few. So, for example, let's look at all these different ones here. We've got a journal article that's in press. In press means it hasn't been published in an actual issue yet. It can also mean maybe it's an advanced online publication. Okay, a journal article reprinted from another source. So oftentimes a journal will take an article that was very successful, that was groundbreaking, and they'll reprint it 10 years later as sort of like a medical history kind of thing. All right, you got tons of other ones here. Journal article published in another language, advanced online publication, journal article with a DOI. Okay, and here's a good one: journal article with a DOI with 21 or more authors. You may say that sounds extreme. I see this way more often than you think. Everybody's trying to get their name on a paper, and a fantastic way to do it is to be that 21st author. All right, so let's take a look at this one and see what it actually looks like. To view an example, all you have to do is click go to manual under the search result. Once I'm here, I then have a perfect example of how to cite a journal article with 21 plus authors. So how do you do it? Well, here it is. There's my who. Okay, you type in 21 of the names, and then you use an ellipses. All right, and then you put in the last name on the paper. Okay, so that's your who. It's a lot of names. All right, then you have your when right there. There's the year. Okay, then we have our full line of what. Okay, this is our full line of what. We have the title of the article, not italicized. Then we have the title of the journal, italicized. Then we have the volume, italicized. The issue, in parentheses, which is not italicized. And then you have the page numbers. So when you're citing a journal article, your what is a little bit longer than it would be if you just found a random PDF or you were citing a website. Okay. Then we have our where. And our where is simply the DOI in web form. All right, so that is a great way to look up a reference, make sure you're getting it correct, all right, and using the APA manual to do so. Okay, what else is helpful in this APA manual? Well, check this out. If you click log in on the left-hand side, all right, you're able to create your own account within the APA style manual. I've already done that, so I'm going to log in now. All you would have to do is hit create an account, and you'd be given the option to do so. All right, and once I've created that account, that opens up 3 other options for me. Those options are going to be highlight, notes, and bookmarks. So let's say I, as a student, am doing a big paper, but I always forget how to cite journal articles that are an advanced online publication. A lot of times you'll see this written as EPUB ahead of print as well. I always forget how to cite these. They take a little bit extra. You have to put this fancy advanced online publication in the citation. So I just don't remember how to do this. So all I would have to do is highlight this, right click, and then hit add highlight. Now, when I open up the style manual, okay, so let's say I go to my dashboard and then I look and go to my highlights, everything I've saved in my highlights will be immediately accessible right there, making sure you don't have to go up and use the search box. You don't have to use the table of contents. You can directly get back to what you were looking for. This also works with notes. All right, maybe you wanted to add a note to a particular section saying, hey, let's double check this. I'm not sure if this is the actual source or not. Maybe I should contact the librarian and ask. All right. Or you can bookmark. Maybe there's a section of the manual, for instance, maybe it's that chapter 4, right? We come down here and we just need some help with grammar. We just need to reread this. I'm just not getting it. So what I would do is I could come down here, just grab that first section, bookmark it, and then when I wanted to come back to it, I could just, here we go, bookmark this section, and then open that up, and then boom, go directly to my bookmark. This makes using the manual much easier than using the physical copy, which I've got here, all right? So make sure you're using that online manual. Any questions in the chat about our online manual? It's unlimited access. It's not one of those books we've only got 3 or 6 copies of, all right? Any questions about that? The other thing to note in here is if you're the type of person that kind of, like when my wife is studying, she will ask various resources on the internet to make a quiz for her. Like she'll ask AI to make a quiz for her. If you're that type of person, the APA manual has lessons available. So you can learn basic concepts of APA through like a question and answer situation if you wanted to use the lessons function of the APA manual as well. All right. All right, let's move on to our APA LibGuides. So not only on the library webpage do we have access to the manual here, but I want to highlight this writing and information guide that we've had for a long time, which I still think is very, very useful for our students. I show this at Frontier Bound, but I'm going to show it to you again because I know a lot of you forget what happened at Frontier Bound. Let's click on an APA and Writing Info Guide. Many useful things on this page. All right, so we're going to go over them. The first thing on the left here, get Grammarly. Just get it. Get Grammarly and then install the add-on into Chrome. Every time I type something into my browser, I'm now being automatically grammar and spell checked without even having to think about it. I can quickly correct things and make sure I'm not wasting time editing stuff later. Grammarly is a fantastic tool for that, okay? On the right here, this is probably one of the greatest things the library has ever provided you. This is an APA paper template done already in 7th edition. So let me open this up for you. So if you download this to your computer, what you'll get is a Word document that is already in APA 7th format for you. Your page numbers are done. Your title page is done. You've got an abstract page, you have an example first page with a paper title centered, example level 1 and level 2 headings, an example conclusion, and then a couple of pages that show you some basic citation formats that are often used. The reason to use this is because everything as far as margins, page numbers, and headers is already done for you. You don't have to spend time watching the video on YouTube about how to set up an APA paper. Just simply come to our website here and download the APA paper template. All right. Other things that are useful on this page, we provide, the library doesn't, but we have a grant for some writing assistance, okay? You have an option to contact our Office of Student Engagement. If you really, really, really need some writing help, they can help hook you up with that. I would also take a look, if you don't mind, in the APA style blog in the bottom right here. This is a fantastic way to stay current with some of the new stuff that APA is doing. They post interesting blogs every once in a while about weird citations or weird questions that they get. And I think this is a fantastic way to just kind of like keep your mind in the game when it comes to APA. We're actually going to use this website here in a few when I start doing some of the actual questions. All right. Any questions about these resources before we head into answering some of the tricky APA questions that we have? All right, I don't see anybody typing. Let's keep going. Okay, so this was fun. I enjoyed this. Tricky APA questions. So you all, the students, a lot of times think we're kind of wizards when it comes to APA, and that's not the case at all. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes in to becoming good at APA, and it involves a lot of web searching, a lot of soul searching, and basically the only reason I'm good at it is because I help you all do it all of the time. So let's go through some tricky APA questions that the librarians at Frontier get. These are real questions from real students with the names removed, obviously. And I'm going to answer these in my notepad document in real time on screen. So let's take a look at one real quick. The first type of question that I think really stumps students is students ask me quite frequently, Zach, how do I cite an email? How do I cite a Facebook Messenger? How do I cite a text message? And so you have to really think about this as a student. Because I mentioned earlier, there's two main aspects, two main purposes of a citation: to attribute your source and then to bring your reader back to what you've cited. So how would you bring your reader back to your email? Are you going to give them your username and password so that they can log into your email to read? No. How can you produce? You could take a screenshot of a text message, but that would be citing an image, not the actual information in there, right? How do you cite a Facebook Messenger message? Like, how do you even think about this stuff? So APA has a way to deal with this, and it's called personal communications. So here's the question from the student. Zach, she was doing a community assessment assignment where she was looking at some health policy in her community, and she needed to talk to a legislator who had authored a bill that was looking to change some health policy in her community. So she reached out to this legislator via email, and then she also reached out via Facebook Messenger. First of all, kudos to this student. This is boots on the ground work. It takes some gall to email a legislator and to reach out on Facebook. This is the stuff right here. If you're wanting to be a health policy type of nurse, the stuff you need to be doing, okay? So she wants to cite this email, and then she also wants to cite her conversation that she had with the legislator via Facebook Messenger. How do we do this? Well, let's take a look at the manual, all right? We're going to go right to the APA manual for this, and I'm going to type in the top left, personal communications. So anytime, all right, you have something you want to cite that comes from your email, a phone call, an interview, a text message, a conversation, anything that basically your reader could not get back to, you're going to cite this as a personal communication. All right. So I typed in personal communications here. All right. And I'm going to go to this first example, works credited in the text. So let's click on that and let's discover this together. So works that cannot be recovered by readers. Okay, so works without a source element. These are going to be things like emails, text messages, online chats, direct messages, personal interviews, telephone conversations, live speeches, unrecorded classroom lectures, memos, letters, messages, so on and so forth. They get what's called the personal communication citation. You only cite it in text. You do not cite it on your reference page. You don't cite it on your reference page because your reader cannot get back to it. Okay? So the only thing you have to do is this right here. Parenthetical citation. You put the person's name, so first initial, comma, last name, comma, personal communication, comma, the date you had the communication. So what does that look like? Let's take a look here. All right. So you were doing today's. Now this is recorded, so this would not qualify. But if I did not record this and you wanted to cite me, you would say this: Z Young, personal communication, April 23rd, 2026. Boom. That is done. That is a perfect personal communication citation. So the answer to the question is yes. You can cite all of that weird stuff, all right? But it does not get a reference entry. It only gets a narrative citation. Any questions about that? This is very relevant because in many of your courses, a lot of them are going to ask you to do something weird like this where you got to reach out to someone. Maybe you have to interview another scholar. Maybe you've got to interview the administrator at your job. Maybe you got to talk to the quality improvement person at your job to get some information. Personal communications is a source type you will be using. All right, so that's the first tricky question we get. Let's do the next one. All right. Our next one is, this one, oof. Reference twins. We get this one at least 5 times a term, at least. And it's very tricky. So there is an assignment that a lot of you have already done where you have to go to a nursing organization's webpage. You go to that webpage, you have to find their mission statement, you have to find their values, you have to find their latest news, you have to find their scope of practice. You got to find all of this stuff that is buried within their website. All right, so this is what happened to the student. Let's take a look at it. So the student says, this is a fantastic question to ask. She articulated this so well. I'm referencing different pages on a government website. I have the references separated out, but when I used in-text citations, it would be difficult for the reader to know which web page it is, since in-text citation only requires the government name. Wow, I love this question as a librarian. This is chef's kiss. This is brilliant foresight by the student. So then she provides her in-text citation, and then she shows the reference page where she has 2 references with the same author and same date, but different web links. So how do we do this? All right, we're going to Google for this one. We could use the manual, but I want to show you another resource, okay? So we're going to Google reference twins APA. All right, so we Google reference twins APA, and you see what pops up right off the bat here, the APA style website. Fantastic resource. You cannot get a better resource for APA than the actual APA website. So I'm going to click on this now. All right, and this tells us exactly what to do when we have the same author and same date, even when there is no date present. So how do we do? What do we do? We add an A, B, C, D, E, F, G to the end of the date to signify which citation is which. Let's do it in real time. Let's take a look at the student's citations here. Okay, so Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, Division of Professions and Occupations. She has no date. Then she has the title, Board of Nursing, Advanced Practice Applications, Forms, and Documents. Then she says retrieved from, and she has a web address. Let's throw this into Notepad, and we will fix it. All right, so here we go. I'm going to paste that into Notepad and massage it just a bit so it looks a little better. There we go. All right, now, all right. So there are a couple things wrong with the citation, and we're going to fix them all as we go. The first thing I want to highlight is the author, in my opinion, is a little bit long. I don't think you actually need to know the division where this comes from. I think you only really need to know it's coming from the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies. This is a stylistic call. You can go either way here. But if it was me, I want my citations to just kind of like be nice and tight. All right, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to add a period to the end of that there. All right. So that's our who, Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies. Then we have our when. And our when is no date. So she was unable to find a date on this web page. All right, probably had a copyright date, but not a published date. So all we have to do here is -A, because it's the first citation she used. That's how you figure out which one gets the A. Whichever one you use first in the text, that gets the A, and so on and so forth. All right, then she has our our title. Can anybody look at this title and kind of tell me what's going on here? Maybe what's wrong here? What do we need to do with this? Anybody in chat want to take a guess or unmute and tell me? This is our what right here. Board of Nursing, Advanced Practice Applications, Forms, and Documents. Anybody know? What?
Italize.
You got it, Catherine. Nailed it. It needs to be italicized. Exactly. It's not part of a larger whole. Yes, it is part of a larger website, but that does not count in this case. It is simply a separate web page, and it needs to be italicized. All right. So we hit Control-I or the italicize button there, but we're not done. There's something else wrong with this title. Does anybody see it? Anybody else know what's wrong with this title? Feel free to unmute or put it into the chat. This is a tough one. I feel like we're on Jeopardy here. How about sentence casing, my friends? Sentence casing. We drop the N, all right? We leave the A capitalized because it's after a colon. Then we drop the P, we drop the A, we drop the F, and then we drop the D to all lowercase. It's essential you do that. All right, you will lose points if you're not using sentence casing. So make sure you're proofreading your citations for that. All right, after we have the title, we need to add a period. So I'm going to add that period there. And then we have our where. Okay, anybody know what's wrong with this where? Anybody know? There's just one small mistake with this, and it's something left over from the APA 6th edition. It is retrieved from. We no longer need to add retrieved from. We can omit that. So we get rid of it, and then we have our web address, right? Let me just make sure that's, yep, we have our web address. So this is our citation. It's missing the hanging indent, which you would add in Word, but this is a perfect website citation for that document that she's produced. But we got to do one more. She had 2 to cite. So let's do the next one. All right. We grab, let's copy and paste it here. We grab it from here, then add it to our notepad document. I paste it in there, and now we're going to make it look pretty. All right. So we're going to add some stuff here. First, we're going to get rid of this information that I do not think is useful, in my opinion. Your opinion might be different. That's fine. I just don't think we need it. And then I'm going to do a dash B. All right, because this is a second citation. All right, then we are going to do our sentence casing. All right. Then we're going to highlight all of that and add our italics. Then we add a period. Then we remove retrieved from. And then we have our URL, our where. How about it? That seems pretty easy, right? When someone does it live on screen, it doesn't seem that bad, but when you try to do it at home, maybe it doesn't go as well. Any questions about reference twins? You can have as many as the alphabet will allow. I believe that's 26, 27, right? I guess if you go to Z, maybe you go AA and then BB, CC. That would actually be a good question for APA. So any questions about reference twins?
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
About referencing. I think we don't do indentation again for referencing something.
You do use hanging indents when you are using Microsoft Word. So you would want to add a hanging indent to these citations on the second line. You can use a Shift plus Tab at the same time, and that will add your hanging indent in Microsoft Word and in Notepad.
So we can do hanging indent?
Yes, you should be doing hanging indents when you're writing your papers, yes.
Yeah,
just for the reference list.
I did it last semester. My teacher said you're not supposed to put indent in your second line because
I understand. Yeah, that may not have related to the reference list, but I would love to see that. If you want to email me that offline, I would be happy to take a look at that for you.
It was last semester, though.
Oh, do you no longer have access to it?
Yeah, it was last semester.
That's unfortunate. Yes, yeah. No, you should be using hanging indents, yes.
With references, right?
With your reference page, yes.
Like when I finish writing my paper, I'm putting my references, I can put hanging indent on the second line?
On the reference page, you will have a hanging indent on the second line, yes.
Oh, my God.
And the third, yes. So
she marked me down that everything's supposed to be straight.
Very sorry about that. You may want to email the instructor.
Yeah. Okay. I need the page too. And do you know the page where I can see that? Because it's going to happen again, even though it's not the teacher teaching me now. If it happens, I will give them the page number. Say, hey, we can still use it.
Sure. It's in the manual here. So if we go to the manual and then we look at the format, I believe, let me see, maybe it's the reference format here. Let's take a look for you. One second. Reference elements. Let me see if it's this. There's an example in the book where it actually shows you a web page that, or shows you
I have the book. I can check on the book. So I thought it was something, the page overhead.
I do not know it off the top of my head, but I think it's in this section of paper elements in chapter 2 somewhere. You'll find it.
Okay. Thank you for letting
No
me know.
problem.
I'm,
No problem.
I'm very grateful. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So that's reference twins. It provides a nice, clear explanation for something that's oftentimes confusing to your reader if you're putting in in-text citations that have the same author and same date, but a different web page. Okay. All right, last tricky question. We call this one the weird PDF you found online. All right, so this happens all the time. Your faculty do this, I will say confidently. They'll send us a weird PDF and they'll be like, hey, what is this? And definitely our students do it as well. So don't feel bad if you do this, okay? But this is basically, let's say you're in a research hole. You've been looking for articles for an hour and you've got 15 different tabs open, 20 PDFs, and you've just kind of lost yourself in the sauce of research. So how would you then go back and cite something that you found, like that weird PDF you found online? So the first thing you would have to do is re-find it. So you'd want to Google the title of the PDF, okay? So once you Google the title of the PDF, let me go to my link here. All right, it'll take you to probably a page where you're able to then access the PDF. So I Googled the title here, and now I am actually at the web page where the PDF is downloaded. So I would come down here and click on Download Report. All right, when I open this up, I'm going to start looking for things to tell me what type of document this is. The first thing I want to know, the first thing I always look for when I'm looking at a PDF is I want to know if it's a journal article. Because if it is a journal article, it's going to have a different citation format. All right. So what do I look for when I'm looking for a journal article? I want to see if there's a volume in an issue. I do not see a volume in an issue on this page. I want to look to see if there's a DOI. I do not see a DOI on this page. I want to look to see if there is identifiable authors. All right. I don't see any authors listed on this page as well. So once I've gone through that checklist, I'm now thinking, okay, this is just a random PDF, and my who, when, what, and where is going to take over. All right. So let's do this together. What's the who? All right, type it into the chat. I'm going to scroll slowly through this document. Thank you, Billy Ann. I'm going to scroll. For the student that had the question about formatting earlier, about hanging indents, please check the chat. All right, so I'm going to look at this document, and I'm looking. I did not see an author on the first page. I'm now looking at the acknowledgments. It's not giving me an author's name. Okay, so I'm beginning to think there is not a one-person author for this. So does anybody see something on the front page here that could be an author? Type it into the chat, unmute, and tell me.
Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.
Absolutely nailed it. Exactly, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So we start our citation. We come down here. We start our citation with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Okay, that's our author. I could not identify a person, so that's what we're going to use. Now we need a date. All right, it says right on the front page, September 2017. I've got my date, it's 2017. I don't need to add the September there, no big deal. We'll just add 2017. All right, boom. Then we have a title. All right, let's take a look. I see I'm looking for the largest bolded piece of text that encapsulates what I'm looking at in the rest of the document, and that appears on the front page too. The title is going to be Catalyst for Change, and then it has a subsection, Harnessing the Power of Nurses to Build Population Health in the 21st Century. So that's going to be our what, all right? Now, we're going to format this in an interesting way, though. Because we have two sections of this title, we have Catalyst for Change, and then we're going to use a colon. We can assume a colon because it's two parts, okay? We're going to then add Harnessing the Power of Nurses to Build Population and Healthcare in the 21st Century. So let's do that now. So we'll start our what with italics, okay? And we'll do Catalyst for Change, colon. All right, and then the next part was, I've already forgotten it. There it is. Harnessing the power of nurses to build population health in the 21st century. Boom. All right, and there's our what. Done. Next part is our where. So I have a question for you. okay? The where here can get a little confusing, and I've seen students do this, all right? So I want you to know, all right, if I take the address bar and copy this into my document, okay? So I'm going to take this address bar and copy it into the document. Can I use this as my where? Is this an acceptable web address for me to use? Somebody answer me in the chat or unmute.
No.
Right, exactly. I have seen students try to turn this in though, because when you go to check your links and you click on this, it's going to work because this file path is to your personal computer. So whatever computer you were on when you downloaded this, right, that is the only place it will work. This link will not work if you send it to your instructors, to your librarian, all right, to your neighbor, or whoever. You need to find an actual web address. So I got another question for you. Should I use this web address right here? It doesn't take me to the PDF, does it? So it's not actually the right web address. Now, we may be splitting hairs, and some of your instructors and maybe future editors would be okay with this link. But how do we get the exact direct link to the PDF? And this is a good tip. So if you're downloading a PDF from a website and you want to cite the web address for that, you need to right-click on the download link. So you right-click on the download link and you go to Copy Link Address. This will give you a direct link to the PDF, meaning when the reader looks at your reference list and wants to read this article, they simply click on the link and it automatically downloads the PDF to their computer. All right, so what does that look like? We've copied it. All right, now we're going to delete this bad link here and we're going to paste our good link directly into the box. So now when you copy and paste that, or when you click on the link, you're getting the direct PDF. Pretty cool stuff. Any questions about that? All right. My friends, it has now come to the point of the presentation where I want to take some APA questions from you. It's okay if you didn't come with any. It's actually okay if you don't have any. But I want to open up the field here just to answer any questions you might have regarding APA. So go ahead and type those into the chat, or feel free to unmute, raise your hand, and I will call on you.
For instance, if you want to cite an image from a PowerPoint and you are using the insert an image from the PowerPoint application, do you need to reference it? And how do you cite the picture you just took from Bing?
Sure. Okay, so a very interesting question about citing images. Okay, and this is something we actually have a guide on, and I want to show that to you now. So I'm going to click on Info Guides here, and I'm going to scroll down. All right, to I believe it's called Using Images. There we go. So I'm going to paste this into the chat for you as well. But we've put together a whole guide that covers that question for you. The simple answer is, I believe it was Catherine who asked this question. If you're inserting clip art from PowerPoint, and it needs to be clip art, you don't cite it, all right? Because the clip art is yours. You purchased it or you acquired it when you accessed Microsoft Word, okay? Or PowerPoint. So you don't have to cite that. If you're getting something from Google or from Bing, you need to track down the original source. You don't cite Google, you don't cite Bing, you click on the image and you go to the original website, okay? And then you follow the instructions on citing images that we have here. We've laid this out for you very clearly, okay? So make sure you're checking that out, Catherine. It involves a figure notes, yeah, and then a reference list entry as well. I believe, Donna, you had your hand up, and then Tonya, we will get to your question. Go ahead, Donna.
Yes, Mr. Zach, I have a question. So
Yes.
I was trying to insert hanging indent in my reference link the other day.
Yep.
And the way I used to do it was go up to the paragraph section and there was a little box in the corner and you clicked on that and you put in hanging and it took care of it when you had it highlighted. I don't have that in my Word anymore.
So let me give you a quick tip for this, Donna. This is something I use. Put your cursor in front of the line you want to indent and hit Shift plus Tab at the same time.
Shift plus Tab. Okay.
That will indent that line, and then do it for your next line as well. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great question. And honestly, if it's different in PowerPoint. Hanging indents in PowerPoint are an absolute nightmare, and they involve moving margins to the extent that I don't even like using hanging indents in PowerPoint. but in Microsoft Word, all you need is that Shift tab. Great question.
Okay. Thank you.
Tonya, if I manipulate census numbers data from a website and create my own table, how do I cite and reference the data? Oh my goodness, we have a data set question. I knew this was going to happen. This is the hardest thing to cite in the manual, Tonya. So let me show you and give you a guideline for this. So if we go to reference examples and I type in data table, but because it's hard, Tonya, there's a lot of leeway to mess up because your instructors honestly don't know how to accurately cite a data table as well. So I'm going to click on data table, and I'm going to come down here to reference examples and go to the manual for a data set. So this is how you do it. Basically, you find your who, which is going to be the author. It's probably going to be census.gov for you, Tonya. All right, then you're going to find your date if it's available. Then you're going to title your citation based on the filters you use to get your data. So for instance, if it said like demographic data, Fayette County, 2025. So those were like the 3 limits you put in. Those would then go into your title. All right. And then you would add a data set source. Okay. Data set source in brackets. And then you would add a link to it. Now, here's the thing. When you add that link, it's probably not going to give you the exact data table that you looked at. So that's why in your title, you basically write out the steps that you used, right? So you'll say, I limited to my county. I'm sorry, I limited to my state, my county, and then the year, and those made my title up. Does that make sense, Tonya?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
The actual reference was to actually a graphic.
Oh.
And so it wasn't even a table. It was the population of women in this particular age group in this county. And that's what was, and I just took all those numbers of women in a particular age range and added them together to create my data.
Oh, so no, you would cite it. Then if it's just an image that is static on the internet that you didn't manipulate anything to make the image.
I didn't, but I just made a table.
Oh, you
summarizing it.
So then you would cite that you would cite that as an image at the bottom of your table. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. Yeah.
Okay, I have seen the reference pages, and the chapters is on chapter 9 and 10, and we're supposed to do hang indents. I'm glad I came to this because I have paper that is due, but I was thinking, how will I do the APA? Because last semester, even with the group I have, last time I did reference with the group where they said we don't do hanging this anymore. So I get confused, but now I'm glad I can. So
I'm so sorry, Juliana. Don't let anyone tell you can't do hanging indents, okay?
Okay.
Make sure you add those in there, please.
Yes, I will. I'm grateful.
Good. Any other questions about APA or anything library related? We're coming up on our hour. All right. Not seeing any other questions here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop up our contact information, and I'm going to talk to you just very briefly about what we can and can't do with APA. So if you have APA questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, shoot us an email, give us a call. Here's what we can't do. we cannot review your citation. So if you try to send me your bibliography or your works cited page and say, Zach, can you take a look at these citations? I need to know which ones are right, which ones are wrong. I can't do that for you, all right? Here's what I can do. I and the other librarians can answer specific questions you have about APA. So if you are unsure about some of the articles on your reference list, ask specific questions about them. You can't just send me your Word document and say, hey, take a look at this, what's wrong? All right? Can't do that, but you can ask specific questions. Give us a call at 859-251-4730. Email us at librarian@frontier.edu. Or if you're an introvert like me, set up an appointment and someone will reach out to you instead of you having to reach out to someone. Thank you all so much for attending tonight's session. I do appreciate it. I'm going to put up an evaluation now. So please, if you don't mind, pull out your phone, give this a quick scan, and answer some questions about the session today. We would love your feedback. This is a new little series we're starting. So be brutal if you have to. Tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like, and how we can make things better in the future. Enjoy the rest of your evening.